We are the Reverend David Denham and Ann Lusby Denham. We are community activists in the greater Roanoke area, and I'm a minister.
And I'm a poet.
You'll hear more from this poet here in just a little while in our documentary. I'm the lead organizer for the Southwest Virginia Poor People's Campaign.
Reverend Barber II and Al Gore caught our attention in February 2019 when they spoke at Union Hill, Virginia, a predominantly African-American community that would have had its air destroyed by an Atlantic Coast pipeline compressor station.
The ACP was stopped, so we must stop the MVP. The stories you're about to hear in rural communities south of Roanoke tell of MVP's destruction already done.
The Mountain Valley Pipeline plans for this path of destruction to continue into North Carolina that would decimate indigenous and sacred lands in rural parts of western North Carolina.
We present here the moral case for no Mountain Valley Pipeline. One of my favorite words theologically is wisdom. Gracious God, may your wisdom rise beyond our human limitations of greed and ecological devastation to a new day of your natural energy sources leading our society. So may it be. Amen.
Amen.
Virginia's working family struggling to make a decent life. Many fears, trials, and hardships we face both day and night. Economic, health, and housing, among many other things. Now the time to stand together, we demand a change. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. From the richest to the poor, no one values less or more. Everybody's got a right to live. Fracking and pipeline in our Virginia neighborhoods. Destruction of our land and water, none of this is good. Senseless murders of our people, a sin we must despise. Value people over profit, we're running out of time. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. From the richest to the poor, no one values less or more. Everybody's got a right to live, to live.
My friend Elise Keaton told a crowd gathered in the high school auditorium in Monroe County, West Virginia in 2014 that we'd have to show up for the MVP's open houses. We'd have to show up for the FERC's public hearings. We'd have to show up with the West Virginia DEP and the Virginia DEQ. As she displayed a PowerPoint illustrating the timeline we were still facing, she talked us through the process and what we were likely to experience, emphasizing frequently the need to also occupy the offices of our local government at every given opportunity. You have to be there, she said, and the more the better. Register, comment, preferably in a public context. But really, all this is going to do is help them build a better pipeline. There's a handful of good advice from that time that still sticks with me, like Elise's wise words and an editorial from Thomas Lindsay where he suggested, "Want to stop the newest pipeline that's been proposed? Stop fighting under the corporate script that's been written for you. Turn your back on the FERC and the state legislature. Make them irrelevant. I internalized this. Even before I'd been to multiple open houses, visited board after board after board of county supervisors, suffered through the agonizing 3-minute comment periods over and over again with the FERC and the DEQ, it made sense to me that the revolution would be localized. That we must shift our focus to local systems and simply begin to implement them. We can no longer wait for some mythical intervention by some indoctrinated version of authority. When the State Water Control Board approved the 401 water quality certifications in December of 2017, I quit helping them build a better pipeline. Lots of other people did too. Some kept going to meetings when they could. Some shifted their attentions to gathering other information. Some succumbed to despair or fury, abandoning hope just enough to seek the moment rather than a hypothetical future. Some of them climbed mountains to live in trees.
Ho yo in the Matsuway, ho yo in the Matsuway, hi it's a Matsuway, hi it's a Matsuway, ho yo in the Matsuway, ho yo in the Matsuway, hi it's a Matsuway, hi it's a Matsuway, ho yo in the Matsuway, ho yo in the Matsuway, hi it's a Matsuway, hi it's a Matsuway, ho yo in the Matsuway, ho yo in the Matsuway, yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Hey yo, way on in. Hey yo, why not? Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Hey yo, way on in. Hey yo, why not? Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Hey yo, way on in. Hey yo, why not? Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Hey yo, way on in. Hey yo, why not? Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Hey yo, way on in. Hey yo, why not? Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Hey yo, way on in. Hey yo, why not? Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Hey yo, way on in. Hey yo, why not? Yo ho, you tits on the what's in. Hey yo, way on in. Hey yo, why not? Hey ya na na ya. Hey ya na na ya na. Hey ya na na ya. Hey ya na na. Hey ya na na ya. Hey ya na na ya na. Hey ya na na ya. Hey ya na na. Yimbo yimbo nani yo hey yo yimbo. Yimbo yimbo nani yo hey yo yimbo. Hey ya na na ya. Hey ya na na ya na. Hey ya na na ya. Hey ya na na. Hey ya na na ya. Hey ya na na ya na. Hey ya na na ya. Hey ya na na. Yimbo yimbo nani yo hey yo yimbo. Yimbo yimbo nani yo hey yo yimbo. Ooh, wakanyelo. Hey, ya, hey, oh. Pia, pia, wila, sicha, yellow. Oh, ya, te, pe, chia, po.
If the powers that be say, I need that, if I gotta burn it, take it, and kill you in the process, so be it. I will get what I want because I can. I'm gonna destroy everything you have to get rich, because when I die, doesn't even matter what I leave behind. I am Bernadette Brown, known to most as BJ, and I'll be traveling to Richmond, Virginia, to march with the people of Union Hill, stand against the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Just from what I've experienced, the MVP pipeline has been an in-your-face degradation of the people. It's been a blatant sign that all of us don't hold the same value. I recognized a particular group of people, the African American historic community. I just want to go stand with them and, be a support for their community. I can't comprehend why something King had to march for decades ago. Here we are in 2019, still marching, crossing the same bridge they walked over for the same injustices. When I raise my voice, I know that I am taking a chance that I will lose something. If I take wise counsel, they would advise me, you need to stay home, mother your children, do what you can do to kind of stay under the radar and get through life. I believe that's the reason things are like it is. It's all or none. And until we actually come together in unity, I don't know what it's going to take to break these powers that feel that they run things. Everything I need, I've been gifted. Air, water, everything that's essential to me staying alive was not made by the hands of any man, in my belief. It was gifted by the Creator. We will win. Because here's the thing. If we lose, there won't be anyone here to win.
In 1968, Dr. King, in true prophetic form, declared that we have in our lifetime an opportunity to avoid a natural disaster of grand design and create a new spirit of economic and social harmony. An opportunity to write a luminous moral chapter in American history if we only choose. He qualified this, however, saying that though time still permitted us to act and meet the future with a clear conscience, that all of us were on trial in this troubled hour, and that we did not have a millennium to make changes. nor have we a choice of continuing in the old way. That was in 1968. 51 years ago, when the drum major spoke these words, only 5 years after which he had first described a fierce urgency of now, wherein he declared that we are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. That in this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late, and that this is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. 51 years later, in this, the year 2019, we find ourselves in our own fierce urgency of now, a moment where we are called to understand and to understand fully the consequences of our actions. We are living in a moment of three intersecting crises: the crisis of climate, the crisis of our democracy, and the crisis of poverty. On the crisis of climate, the UN IPCC report has listed a window of 12 years, 12, for us to undertake sweeping policy in order to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. And that's only with the goal of limiting the effects of climate change to the current devastation with which we are rapidly becoming familiar. Is Virginia in the South? Is Virginia in the South? Right here in the southern United States, southern temperatures have warmed by as much as 2.3 degrees Fahrenheit, with increases in the number of days a year classified as dangerous or extremely dangerous based on National Weather Service heat index guidelines going up. Has it been hot lately? Right here in Virginia, dangerous heat days are expected to quadruple from the current average of less than 10 to more than 40 dangerous heat days a year, threatening 160,000 Virginians who are especially vulnerable to extreme heat. In the South, annual rainfall has decreased across the region, threatening agricultural yields and putting at risk a major component of southern state economies and food security for millions. At the same time that we have lower annual rainfall for the year, we see the increase of more singular extreme rainfall events, rain bombs, which threaten an increase in flood frequency. Since 1958 in the Southeast, there's been an increase of 27% of the amount of precipitation falling during heavy downpours. We see sea level rise of as much as 1 to 3 feet in the past 100 years in low-lying areas in the region. In Virginia alone, 260,000 people live in areas subject to an elevated risk of inland flooding, and 164,000 people live in areas at risk for coastal flooding. Now, by 2050, that number will increase by 137,000 people. On the crisis of poverty, right now, 2019, nearly 41 million Americans live below the federal poverty line, with whites making up 42.5% of this population, Latinos making up 27.4%, and Black Americans making up 22.7%. Nearly 140 million people are either poor or low income under the alternative supplemental poverty measure. That's a crisis, y'all. Right here in Virginia, 43% of people in Virginia are poor or low income, a total of 3.5 million residents. This includes 51% of children. Children. Housing, higher education, and healthcare costs have increased significantly. Over the past 30 years, rents have gone up faster than income in nearly every urban area in the country. Now, on the crisis of democracy, when we see attacks on voting rights, attempts to gerrymander our electoral districts, the dismantling of separation of powers, and an attempt to submit into American jurisprudence a legacy of corruption and regressive policies through flawed judicial appointments, that's a crisis. Currently, legislative and actions and legal decisions at the federal and state levels have severely restricted the ability of people of color, especially poor Black people, Latinx, and Native Americans, to participate in democratic processes. This includes the 2013 Shelby versus Holder Supreme Court case, which gutted the 1965 Voting Rights Act. We talk about the legacy of the Poor People's Campaign and the Civil Rights Movement. They gutted one of the victories of that movement. 23 states have adopted some form of voter suppression law since 2010. And 25 states have preempted cities from passing minimum wage laws, many in response to successful grassroots living wage campaigns. According to the Electoral Integrity Project, partisan redistricting and gerrymandering, not Russian interference, were the greatest threat to fair elections in the United States in 2016. In total, the Brennan Center for Justice has reported that 23 states have adopted various forms of voter suppression laws since 2010, including 13 with more restrictive voter ID laws. Virginia has required a photo ID to vote since 2013, the very year the Supreme Court undermined the elements of the Voting Rights Act. Is that right? All of this was consistent with the 2015 national study that found that states with a high turnout of voters of color in the previous presidential election were on average expected to see more than 3 additional restrictive proposals every 2 years. Now, when we talk about these 3 crises, the crisis of climate, the crisis of poverty, the crisis of democracy, how do these 3 crises inform us of the larger context of why this pipeline is so devastating? Well, let's talk about it a little bit. My sister Corinna already gave us some really powerful figures. Let's talk about it a little more. We talked about the climate crisis and the direct effects that we will experience here in Virginia and the Southeast. We heard natural gas pipelines emit methane, a greenhouse gas that is 80 times more potent than heat-trapping CO2. This in turn exacerbates and speeds up the climate crisis, moving along the impact to the global ecosystem, but especially affecting vulnerable communities to a greater extent. 2 of the consequences we mentioned earlier regarding climate change were increased temperatures and heavy downpours. Well, increased temperatures make air pollution worse. How? Temperature is one of the greatest contributing factors to ground level ozone, the other 2 being air pollution and sunlight. And what else contributes to air pollution and ground level ozone? Anybody know? Compressor stations, like the one proposed in Union Hill, that emit nitrous oxide and increase ground level ozone. The heavy downpours that we discussed bring with them an increased risk of flooding, but also of runoff and sedimentation, impacting our waterways. Another crisis which I failed to mention was that of our natural ecosystem. It's been less than 2 weeks since a UN special report on biodiversity and ecosystems released the stunning figure that because of our actions, I thought we were called to be stewards, y'all, but because of our actions, because of our choice in continuing the old way, now 1 million plant and animal species on our planet are expected to go extinct. On our watch, I see you. That's not in line with our call to be stewards of this earth. It's not in line with, as the Dalai Lama said, the necessity that because we all share this planet Earth, we have to learn to live in harmony and peace with each other and with nature. It's not in line with what Dr. King warned us, that we must all learn to live together as brothers and sisters or perish together as fools. Now on poverty, poor communities and communities of color are disproportionately burdened with the cost of fossil fuel development. In 2016, an executive in the gas industry, he made this on anonymous, y'all, he didn't go on record, but he admitted that it's an industry practice to avoid development in affluent communities where residents have resources to fight back. He admitted that. According to FERC's own limited analysis, more than half of the 105 census tracts in Virginia and North Carolina within 1 mile of the proposed pipeline's route have disproportionately high populations that are either poor or communities of color, including many Native American populations. In my home state of North Carolina, 7 out of the 8 counties along the proposed route have medium household incomes below the statewide median. 7 out of the 8 counties along the proposed route have poverty levels higher than the state average. And 7 out of the 8 counties have populations of color higher than the state average. And that story is not unique. It's the same here in Virginia, in Union Hill. You know, at some point, we really have to ask ourselves why our rural communities and communities of color have been designated the dumping ground for our nation's pollution. You know, at some point, we have to stop believing the lie that our rural communities are somehow less deserving of protection and that their only value is in how much of our pollution we can pump and spray and leak into these regions. At some point, we have to stop believing the lie of sacrifice zones, this false argument that certain communities must be exploited and disrupted out of a flawed interpretation of utilitarian necessity. Now, finally on democracy. In order to fix the climate crisis, in order to fix the poverty crisis, we're going to need to fix the crisis of our democracy. At the same time that we see regressive attacks on the rights to vote for U.S. citizens, we see attempts to expand the influence of big money and special interests are able to wield over our elections. Did you all know that nationally, the fossil fuel industry has spent over $2 billion on killing climate laws and renewable energy policies? Here in Virginia, Dominion, anybody know Dominion? A $40 billion energy conglomerate has become the state's largest donor to political campaigns. It has spent over $2 million in targeted community lobbying campaigns for its pipeline project and over another $1 million in general lobbying expenses. Am I right? Is that true? Dominion has relied on several surrogates to do its lobbying. A majoring force on its behalf has been the National Association of Manufacturers, which has lobbied for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline since 2015. And in the 2 years from 2013 to 2015 alone, Dominion donated over $70,000 to the National Association of Manufacturers. In a recent quarter, 13 lobbyists from NAM promoted the ACP to the United States Senate, the United States House, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So facing all of this, what can we do? Well, looking back at Dr. King's fierce urgency of now, there is within that call an essential duality which we must accept. Both that we must act with all due quickness, but also with the thoughtfulness and seriousness of purpose appropriate to meaningful action. So in that is our call to understand and to understand fully where we are. Yes, we are facing looming crisis, and yes, the challenges seem hard, but we must not give ourselves up to dismay. No, this is the moment where we must understand that change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. And so we must straighten our backs and work for freedom. This is the moment where we must understand that freedom is never really won, that you must earn it and win it in every generation. This is the moment where we must acknowledge the words of James Farmer Jr., that if we do not save the environment, if we do not heed the words of our rural communities, if we do not understand the urgency of this moment, that whatever we do in civil rights, whatever we do in voting rights, whatever we do in the crisis of poverty will be of no meaning, because we will have the equality of extinction. And as such, we must continue to organize, strategize, and mobilize. We must continue to agitate, litigate, and complicate as if our world depends on it, because it does. That is our call to answer. Let us answer, Virginia. Let it start here.
know water is life. The pipeline set us up for a fatal catastrophe. We're taken to the streets, begging to stop us, please. Pipeline compared to lifeline, no comparisons indeed. Pipeline compared to lifeline, cause of corporate greed.
Well, it all started with a dream. To farm and to get out of an office and to actually do something beneficial. So we started looking from North Georgia up through Northern Virginia. We needed enough open land, plenty of grass for growing, for feeding, because we're essentially growing grass. And we needed a house that was big enough for our family. We had 4 generations, or 9 of us, when we first moved here, ranging from 2 to 92.
Well, first of all, we are interested in being near the mountains. My wife had grown up in the mountains and lived in Florida for 30 years, and we decided to look from North Georgia to northern Virginia, along the Appalachian Range, Blue Ridge Mountain Range, for a farm that would meet our needs. The critical things that we felt we need to have were proximity to a good market that didn't have a lot of competition in it, and Roanoke appeared to be that way according to our studies. Also, we wanted the farm to be close enough and accessible enough from major highways that we could get customers to come here, because we felt it was important to build trust with people when they see how we would raise our animals.
One very important thing was that it was a place that there hadn't been any chemicals used, herbicides, pesticides, anything of that nature in the past at least 7 years, if not longer. And when we came here, we found it was at least 20, and now after talking to previous owners, it looks like it's closer to 50 years of chemical-free prior to Mountain Valley Pipeline coming.
So we landed upon this farm in Franklin County, 25 minutes from downtown Roanoke, and it had the water sources that were really important to our family, and to being able to kind of begin this new dream for our family of becoming sustainable farmers and trying to be the change in the world. And it's a beautiful spot.
Started with some rudimentary things of running water, making sure that we could get water to where the animals were, not just relying on hoses. I've run dozens of miles of fence for enclosing pigs and cows, either in the woods or out of the woods, and we've converted things like old buildings and barns into places where we can start our pigs, to teach them about electric fence, and also a place that we could overwinter them, and just really kind of take young animals and grow them into what they needed to be.
We also, in order to attract people here and have a venue, we had to turn what was a cow milking station into a pavilion. And so we made improvements, built seating and all those sort of things, added screens so we could show movies about fresh food, about good quality food. And again, it's part of our building trust, of building clientele.
So over the 8 years that we were growing, we grew every year, and our revenues increased, our customers increased. We kind of hit a stalemate about a year ago when construction started on our property, and we've got 58 acres, approximately 30 of that is in pasture. When the pipeline construction came through, with the swath that they took, that excluded us from an immediate 12 acres, so a third of the total property. But then subsequent to that, the surrounding woods that pigs would use, and sometimes cows would range through, it eliminated at least 30 acres from the land that we could use.
My passion was connecting community and around food, and also in transparency in what we were doing, of raising our animals, how we were doing it, and creating opportunities for people to see it firsthand. That's something that took years towards building our brand as a family farm that cares about the land, cares about our family, cares about community, and especially cares about food and what we put into our bodies and how we sustain ourselves.
I'm Bill Wolf. I've been working in the world of organic certification and organic regulation for over 40 years. I've helped develop the National Organic Program standards, and I assist companies and farms to become certified organic. The pipeline is laid out directly through the center of one of the most valuable parts of this property, and it has disrupted the soils at a very deep level that will take centuries to actually restore. The practices that were used even in the construction techniques and in the seeding non-organic seed and seeding using chemicals on this property has it made it non-certified. The damage is huge. If we were asked to evaluate the certification requirements to get them back to being certified, we don't know how far away from this pipeline we'd have to get, because we don't have the data to understand the chemicals that the pipe was treated with. We don't understand how far that would travel. The cost to restore this farm to become certified organic again would exceed the original value of the farm.
When we came here to this land, it was to raise good quality food, to take care of the land, to work with nature, knowing that the rains are going to fall, and if we have grass, it's going to catch it, it's going to slow it down, it's going to stop erosion. It's hard to even really talk about our pros versus their cons because they don't exist on the same spectrum. We're here to grow grass and restore the earth to how it should be, so that we're working together with it. And when you come in and you just tear up the ground and you cut all the trees and you plow a big ditch through things, you divert water flow. You disturb the topsoil that's been accumulating for millennia. And it's not anything that is in any way compatible with what we're trying to do.
This is Betty Werner on Four Corners Farm. I'm standing on the timber mat, kind of bridge going into the wetlands. And here you see this pipe that was in the trench floating completely up. And I believe all the trenching materials, you look over there, you can see the ripples hitting right where the trench is. And then it looks like it's boiling up. Here is looking down our pasture. Looks like a regular river flowing through the lower pasture, all kind of contained by the berms that they placed with their trench excavations, also the topsoil piles along the far edge. So that's holding the water and forcing it to kind of just cut through and remain murky. Instead of when it was one field, it would kind of dissipate out over the field and then sink down into the ground and be a little more of like its own filter system. Yeah, pretty amazing. Power of water. And here goes a floating barge of timber mats. There it goes. Probably go down to Little Creek.
I can't even put my hands into the soil, and I can't smell any life there. Not an organic farm anymore.
The other thing is the construction going on 7 days a week. We felt like produced a lot of stress on our animals, particularly since we had broiler chickens down the lower pasture when they started construction, which we couldn't easily relocate. And the blasting, the breaking up of rock, the dust, all the engine noises, and all the constant beep beep, just took its toll on us and our animals, we believe, and just to the point where we couldn't continue.
From May until November, 3 of our cows died. And they were all mama cows who had had baby calves. We don't know why. We've never had a loss like that before. It's not compatible. And we made a business decision to cease our farming operation and business for the interest of the community that we've served and have loved, and for our family's health and well-being.
You'll go from areas where, and we have photo and video, where those fields were lush and green and standing tall with grass that could withstand droughts, could withstand winds. With compaction, you'll end up something that looks more like a desert or a dirt road where nothing really grows. The ground is so hard that it can't be dug. Water doesn't get in. It runs off and continues on instead of really seeping in and nourishing the roots of the plants that are out there. And I mean, that's what we're doing. We're just trying to encourage the growth of the grass and to build the topsoil, all the micronutrients, all the fungi, everything that comes together in a symbiotic way to really replenish. And that is the sort of thing that won't happen anytime in the near future with the pipeline there. It's going to take time for the soils to settle and to really truly heal the damage. That they'll try to cover it up, but it's going to take a very long time to really heal things.
Hey Virginia, my name is Angelicia Rogers, trumpetess. I am a Virginia native, but currently I'm sheltered in place here in the Bronx, New York, where I live. How are you guys doing? I'm so excited to be a part of Sun Singing Place Artivism. I'm so grateful for the collaboration. It's definitely been a little something to help keep me busy during this pandemic. I've been able to participate in different regards, and I'm grateful for that. COVID-19 pandemic, what's going on politically? It's a lot going on in our world. It's a whole lot. And we're fighting for environmental justice. We're fighting for all of these things. And I really believe that this time came as a reflection. It came as a period where everything kind of comes to a head, and it gives you a chance to say, something's going on. What needs to be done so that we can fix it? And I mean, you know, we've been singing that song for a while, but sometimes things have to come to a head. And I believe that that's what's going on. So my prayer, my thoughts, my wishes is for you and your family to be safe. And I pray that, and I hope that you've been able to take this time of reflection and just grab that something that's going to help give you the fuel to continue forward. That being said, I thought it only be fitting to share a selection that has done that. A song that is in my personal toolkit that I pull out when I need something, and that's Amazing Grace. Enjoy.
again with the Poor People's Campaign of Southwest Virginia, and also have been lead organizers for Represent Roanoke Valley, getting the big money out of politics. And doesn't that sound like something important? Well, we're about to hear from Delegate Sam Rasool, and he was the first Virginia public official to make an anti-corruption commitment in 2014. In 2017, Delegate Rasool called for the establishment of the Clean Money Squad, a place where other Virginia public officials could declare their pledge not to take large corporate donations from groups such as fossil fuel companies and public utilities. Delegate Rasool understands the foundation of big money that drives the Mountain Valley Pipeline. Delegate Rasool has spoken openly about stopping the MVP, has visited tree sitters, done a tour around the state about the Mountain Valley Pipeline, and more. With his leadership, more public officials and office holders have joined in saying no to the MVP. Sam, thank you for being with us.
Hello, friends and fighters of terrible pipelines, and especially our friends who are hustling around trying to stop this Mountain Valley Pipeline. I hope you're doing well. Sam Rasool here. We are so thrilled to be seeing some of the progress in Virginia. Of course, we're happy that the Atlantic Coast Pipeline has been stopped, as it looks like for now, which is fantastic. We want to bring that energy right back into the Mountain Valley Pipeline and try to put up as many hurdles as we can. I wanted to just kind of tell you a couple of quick points. I know most of you know this stuff inside and out, but it is important that we keep reminding folks about some of the dangers of this pipeline. First of all, it would be the largest pipeline in Virginia history with a 42-inch diameter. And it is crazy to think about bringing that kind of time bomb right over the steep slopes that even one Mountain Valley Pipeline executive called an engineering marvel to be able to do that. Second, you might have heard that we just had a little earthquake just a few weeks ago. We're in a seismic zone, and we have seen that shift even in the construction impact some things. When you've got construction equipment rolling downhill, you've got seismic zone. I mean, there is no reason to be bringing this thing through. And unfortunately, it's just billions of dollars of investment that is trying to go back and return on profit for a few folks in Pittsburgh and a couple of shareholders. But even they are starting to pull out and feeling dismayed by these terrible investments. We have seen the price tag for this boondoggle double since the start of it. It is clear we've already ravaged so many lands. You know, when I was there that moment that Red Terry came down from the tree, we wanted to march around this state and make sure that people knew that this was bad for Virginia in so many ways. You know, it's just terrible when, you know, people don't know that things like this significantly impact our carbon footprint. And as somebody who's a champion of the Virginia Green New Deal, and we've made sure that we've brought front and center the need to have intersectional justice, and that's justice in all of its forms, making sure we're not railroading marginalized communities by pushing these pipelines on through, being sure that we're respecting and protecting our valuable water resources with this you know, crossing over the Roanoke River over 100 times and its tributaries. It's clear there is no need, and Virginia has the right to be able to stand up and stop this, just like other states have done. And so now is the time to be bold. Even contractors for the MVP EQT pipeline are embroiled in lawsuits. And so all of this needs to be aggressively challenged in lots of different ways. So let's keep a few things in mind. So I've got a few notes to think about as we move forward. Number one, we have to build broad coalitions. I had no problem even working with contacts at Americans for Prosperity who are against the abuse of eminent domain to steal private property for the wealth of just a few. Building those broad coalitions, no matter what they look like, because this fight is not partisan in nature. It is from the ground up, and it's a fight to save our land and to save our planet. So let's challenge ourselves to build those broad coalitions no matter what they look like. Second, let's make sure we hit it from every angle like we've been doing, supporting the litigation efforts, supporting the legislative efforts, trying to do our best to support our tree sitters who have just been doing an awesome job. And Yellowfinch has been up there for 2 years now, that tree sit. We are thrilled and happy to see so much energy continuing in that direction. And third, I think an important thing for us to be doing is to spread the word, to hold our leaders accountable. Please do not talk to us about the sense of urgency that you feel around climate change and at the same time want to remain silent around some important issues like this, like stopping the Mountain Valley Pipeline, the largest pipeline in Virginia history, wants to make its way through some of our beautiful scenery here. Look, we've always had 3 goals, and it has always been that way. Number 1, to stop both of these pipelines, the Atlantic Coast and MVP, halfway there. Number 2, make sure that we make it impossible for Democrats to be able to run on a pro-pipeline agenda in Virginia again. That goes against our values, goes against fundamentally what we believe in. We can't say we're for this, but if there's a lot of money behind it, then we'll look the other way. That sends the wrong message. But number 3, we want to give them such a hard time in trying to come through Virginia that no company ever thinks about trying to bring this fossil fuel investment through Virginia again. So we've made some strides over the past couple of years. And our coalition, anti-pipeline coalition, will continue to do so. I'm thrilled to be working with you all. And of course, you can count me as an ally whenever you need me. Contact me anytime. It's been an honor to be fighting with you over the past 5 or so years, and we'll keep fighting for many years to come.
This is the largest pipeline ever put in the ground. If this blows, everything's dead in 2.5 miles. That includes all my family, my neighbors, the animals. And I've told people before that my greatest fear is that I'll be in town when it blows. And I'll have to be the survivor of this.
You've got this huge shale oil field that you're extracting gas from. They've got a 42-inch high-pressure pipeline that has 90-degree bends in it. And you don't do that with an 8-inch pipeline because they'll just blow themselves apart.
When they came through and cut my trees, oh God, it was like a knife in the heart for every tree that I heard fall. My tree sits right here. This is where I lived for 34 days. Had my drywall bucket on the side with a toilet seat. I had my food over here. I had not much else.
Yellow tape and workers surround the makeshift treehouse of a 61-year-old protester called Red.
The Mountain Valley Pipeline. It's a shell company. It's a stack of paperwork. Should anything go wrong with this pipeline, they'll cease to exist in however long it takes to write up the paperwork to dissolve a company. And then they will not be held responsible for anything because they will no longer exist.
When they announced the pipeline coming through, it was just such a kick in the teeth, and it's just this feeling like they're snatching up all these beautiful places because it's easy. I don't think they really understood how much disruption and suffering they're going to bring to people up here, and how people up here are pretty banded together, and they're not going to stand up for it.
We went, nobody's that stupid. Nobody is that stupid to go through these steep mountains in this hard rock, through all these wetlands, all this water. And we laughed. And we really didn't take them seriously until the surveyors came.
So there's a tiny little detail in the fact that Roanoke Gas is a 0.1% owner of this pipeline. And because Roanoke Gas is part of it, they can now claim that it's part of a utility, which allowed the eminent domain.
I told Minor, I said, I've got the month off, I'm going to build me a tree stand. So she said, I'm with you, Mom.
And I guess we were watching, the news was on, and they were talking about the tree sits at the Appalachian Trail with Nutty. And Ray was sitting there, and she's like, I can do that. And Minor's like, well, Mom, if you can, I will too. They started planning it. They got people involved. They went up in the trees.
We had never been to another tree sit. We were clueless. I wasn't expecting the cops to surround me. I had 2 MVP guards, 2 Roanoke County cops, and 2 state police 24/7. They taped me off, and nobody was allowed to pass anything up to me. And they were going to starve me out.
Roanoke County caved, and we were told that we would be delivered meals. And those meals turned out to be 2 bologna sandwiches, 2 cookies, a bag of juice, and that was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so after I got out of the trees, I mailed our governor a bologna sandwich every day.
I hope he ate the motherfuckers.
This is our home. You can't come in and take away people's home, property, and farms and not expect people to resist.
We rallied people, and I would spend my time in the tree all over again. It was worth it.
They don't want you to band together, because once you band together, once you become a force, you realize that there's this whole big community of people that are also opposed to these pipelines.
I don't like being walked all over, and I've never liked being walked all over. I wasn't going to let them walk all over us.
I'm Ann Lusby Denham, and I'm here with my husband David, celebrating the 2nd year of the tree sitters, the Yellowfinch tree sitters. My poem is a shout out to all the water protectors, tree sitters, and landowners. For the water protectors, up on the mountain, men are taking down trees in the latest corporate decision against humanity and the earth. They follow their orders from the desks of CEOs who have mapped out their plans like army generals. They are building a pipeline that will slither across the mountains like the black snake in Native American prophecies. The sound of the tree cutter's saws reverberates within the souls of pipeline resistors, even when they are miles away. The swath of destruction slows down due to women perched in trees, protecting them and protecting the creeks that could be changed forever, since money has become more important than life in our time. To the corporate powers, trees, mountains, streams, wildlife, and people are only objects in the path of the black snake that need to be removed. The workers do not hear the song of the whippoorwill. Indeed, only the women and the water protectors can hear them and mourn all the losses and gather all the lady slippers before they are crushed in the wake of the hideous black snake. The power of these women and these men is not lost and never will be. The earth herself gathers strength from them and keeps the memory of those who resist her destruction. I believe we will win.
Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. I got my hand on the plow. Won't take nothing for my journey now. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. I got my mind made up. I know that we're gonna win. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Freedom's name is mighty sweet, and soon one day there'll be victory. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold